Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. So much of what we do now is about our personal brand. So I'm very excited for our next guest, Ruth Klein. She's the CEO of Expert Celebrity Branding. She's a visibility strategist and master book coach. She's also the author of seven best-selling books herself. She has her master's in clinical and spiritual psychology, and she works with high-achieving entrepreneurs, coaches, and sales professionals. Ruth, welcome to the show.
Oh, absolutely. Nice to be here, Doug.
Pleasure to have you. Okay, so let's kick it off with the sales professionals. I would say about 30 to 40% of our listeners are sales professionals. They're learning how they can leverage branding in order to make more sales. How would you recommend to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's important, really important, that everyone realizes that everyone's in sales. We're all in sales. If you have a 3-year-old or have a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, someone's always trying to get their way. They're trying to get someone to say yes to them. I wrote a book called The Everything, How to Be a Sales Rep. And the most important thing when we're talking about sales and branding is once you have identified how you're different, I mean, really different. And I don't care if this is among realtors, insurance agents, financial services, lawyers, coaches, healers, doctors, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a unique, what I call brand print. Even twins don't have the similar fingerprints, and we don't have the same brand print. But most of us do not know what that unique part of us is. First of all, you've got to identify. So you either need a coach or you need a good friend or you need someone that can help you, a sales professional such as yourself, Doug, that can help guide you so you can start seeing all the parts of what you are. It reminds me, I was working for a unicorn fintech company contacted me, and they were founders, two of them. And I like to get to talk to them and I get to know them. And one of the guys loved World War II everything. And we just started talking. He had no idea that was a huge potential market for him in what he's doing, even though it was in financial technology services. So it's how are you different? That's first of all. Once you identify how you're different, and once you identify the what I want to call the captivating story about you, you never have to sell again. You literally show up. You are who you are, and people ask you questions and you know clearly who you are. You know your ideal client's pain points. You listen to them. You really listen, and you hear between the lines, and you tell them a captivating story. And we all have captivating stories. I meet clients, Doug, in the coffee shop. I meet them standing in line at a theater. I meet them at a dinner party, and I meet them at networking events. And I basically have my little minute and I sit down and someone is basically mouthing, "Can I have your card?" Or, "I want to connect with you." And sometimes at the very beginning, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even know what I was saying, but that's who I am. I tell stories, and those stories are relevant and captivating to my ideal client. And here's the other thing. Once you are who you are and you show up as you and authentically, and your uniqueness, your ideal client and you share the same language. So not everyone is your client, But
Yeah.
your ideal client gets it. They're immediately, they catch on who you are, and they want to know more.
So, we live in obviously a very social media heavy world. That's where I would say I get interaction than anything on the podcast. We push a lot of this to social media, right?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't have the book, they don't have the podcast, right? And so they have to basically think of how to be authentically them every day on social media through long form posting, through reels, through content creation, right? Where's what are the minds in the minefield of content creation that you recommend that they avoid because they don't come off authentic? Where are you seeing that happen with your clients or with your sphere of influence?
So, two things. Number one, you look perfect and everything is perfect. It needs to be good. It needs to be professional. It needs to be real.
Mhm.
This is my office. I love books. And if I were to take a 360, you'd see more bookshelves. That is me. And I'm into
Mhm.
good vibes, and I'm into music. Everything that you see right now is me, and it's just normal me. There's no extra makeup. Didn't have a makeup person come in and do all that stuff. It's what you see is what you get. So that's number one. Number two, do not try and follow someone else because it will bomb. You're not that person.
Mhm.
So what you've got to do is you basically have to identify what, unless you don't have a book, you don't have a podcast, but of course you've got to be on social media. So this is one of the
Mhm.
best ways to get on social media, and you can do it every day. And I love, you can do Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, TikTok, get on LinkedIn, Twitter. And what you do is identify maybe 5 to 10 things that are happening in and around your business area, as well as what's happening in the world at large. And everyone has an
Mhm.
opinion. And I'll give you an example how you combine them. So I was watching this TV series, even though it's really old, 10 to 12 years, Doug. It's called Suits. And
Mhm.
I loved it.
Oh
And
yeah, I love Suits.
it
Yeah.
was wonderful. And then I read in the Wall Street Journal last week that Suits was the number one streaming TV series last month, even though it's been out for 10 to 12 years. So that's what's happening in my world right now. I love it, but here's the deal. So I did a momentum morning coaching this morning, and 2 to 5 minutes. And basically, what it said was, when I watch Suits, it's a legal drama, and the attorneys are always
Mhm.
saying, now I'm going to put you on the stand and you got to be honest. Otherwise, you're going to perjure yourself. And that's a huge penalty. And then I went on this morning and said, I told them, that what I just told you. And then I said, how are you perjuring yourself? How are
Mhm.
you saying things to yourself with limiting that's limiting you? I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't start this. I yada yada yada. And so that's what I'm
Mhm.
talking about. Take something as a TV series that you like, or a movie, or a book that you're reading, or something that you're watching on social media that you just don't like, or you do like, or you're talking about something in your field. So for example, I do a lot of work with repurposing content. Sometimes I think my name should be called Ruth Repurpose Klein. And so I'm doing so I do Ruth on Demands, and I then you can take something like that and then break it down using AI, actually, and get some of that on your social media posts. That's one way to do it.
Very cool. I like the tactical approach as well as obviously talking about being you and authentically you versus and when you were saying the purger thing about suits, I was thinking in my mind, you almost have to treat every time you post on social media like you're on the stand. Not necessarily the
Yes,
pressure of it, but the authenticity of it. Because
yes, yes.
if you go on there and you try to BS your way through it and you try to lie and BS, then you're going to eventually be perjured for that, or it's going to come in the form of the wrong clients, the clients
Yeah,
that
exactly.
fall for
That's
that type of
well
stuff or that. Yeah.
well
So
said.
that's what I
Well
was
said.
thinking in my head for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So psychology is pretty interesting to me. I feel like in sales and in leadership, there's two degrees that serve really well. One is accounting, and being an entrepreneur. But in leadership, I feel like psychology is like the best degree to have. You know,
Yeah.
when a lot of the people that I follow are psychologists. Huberman Labs is one of the podcasts that I follow, and I love when he talks about dopamine and the different things that kind of control our subconscious and the way our brains always want us to take the easiest route, but that's not always the best route. It's the one with the most dopamine, but it's also like long term happiness. That's not where we're going to get it from, right? And
Right.
so psychology's always been very interesting to me. If I were to go back to school someday, it would 100% be to get a degree in psychology. How have you applied that formal education to your business now?
Oh, wow. Oh, everything I do seems to have a psychological basis, whether I realize it or
Hmm.
not. So, with my degree in clinical psychology and in spiritual psychology, um, I don't even know where to start. It's so huge. So I'm a big believer in pretty much in what you were saying, but the word I use is mindset. And if
Okay.
someone wants to, in sales, for example, they want to hit their target, um, then their mindset will have to change if they want to hit a higher target. Otherwise, there's what I call there's a temperature gauge, and most salespeople find that they run in this temperature gauge, and in order to go higher, they need to have a different mindset. And so what I do is, and this is the interesting thing, I help my clients go mindset, and the second path is skill set. So if
Mhm.
someone's mindset is ahead of their skill set, they're going to be very frustrated. If their skill set is ahead of their mindset, they're going to be very frustrated. And so, where do we start? We start with value. This is the biggest, most common denominator in psychology, how people see themselves. And it goes back to value. So, speaking of leadership, Doug, there's two parts to leadership, and the least common denominator as I look and work with my clients. One is self-esteem and one is self-confidence. The leadership that's required for self-esteem is, we're all given what I call divinely gifted gifts and talents. But because some of them they come so easily to us, or we don't put much value to it. And we don't, some people don't even think they deserve to be here. That's a self-esteem issue. The other part of that leadership equation is the self-concept, and self-confidence. And that is, I feel competent that I can do this job. I feel competent that I can reach my goal. In fact, I can exceed my sales goal. So there's two levels of
Mhm.
leadership there that are both based in psychology. And unless we address each one, I don't care how many skill sets you know, I don't care how much you know, they're not going to be implemented to their potential unless those two are clean, what I call cleaned up.
100%. No, I love the mindset piece behind it because it's such a huge part of sales. It's the
Mhm.
foundation of, the way that we operate because we have to be told no all day, and just depending on our product, right? Some products are easier to sell than others. Some you get on a Zoom call, or you get in front of a client, and they are there to seek that, and so that's an easier sale. Or some you knock on a door and they didn't even know you were showing up, 5 minutes ago,
Right,
and then in
right,
the next 30 minutes you're selling them a roof or a solar system or whatever the case is. So,
right.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I would say
I
that, sorry, I think we have a delay,
do have a
unfortunately.
bit of a
My
delay,
internet
yes.
signals. Yeah, go ahead.
But what I was going to say is value is a big deal. So money rarely is the issue. That's rarely the no. The When someone says no to purchasing something, for the majority, they don't see the value that it's going to bring them. They don't see how it's going to truly solve pain points and problems. If you can really get down to providing where the potential client sees and feels the value at a visceral level, you will cut your nose substantially. I mean, think
Well, and I
about it.
like what you said earlier.
How many times have you gone to and bought something that's really expensive and you thought you'd never do that? A car, a purse,
Mhm.
um, a new home, whatever it is, but you saw something there, the value.
100%. I like what you said earlier too about a lot of people ask you for your business card kind of under the table a little bit. And it's because they heard something of value and they connected it to their business. And now
That's
they
right.
want to hire you to do the same thing for them, you know?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
just kind of tying that those stories that you tell. And the beautiful thing about that is you're selling without knowing it because you're just telling a story about a client that you had, which is
Mhm.
the best way to sell is in stories 100%. So speaking of selling, one of the things that happened in your career is you were able to not only like coach how to sell high ticket clients, but you've sold really high ticket deals yourself. Nearly $1 million 1 year consulting gig for an Inc. 500 pass executive. Like that is like the ultimate closer right there, you know. And I I love that your first thing that you talked about was telling those stories because when you think about $1 million 1 year consulting gig, that's not something that is in a package somewhere that you have listed in your sales deck. You know what I'm
That's
saying? That's
right.
something that comes from a relationship. Somebody saying, "Hey, I want you to the tune of 7 figures because of the relationship that we have that has developed or whatever the case is." So can you walk me through how that even came about and what
Yeah.
closing that felt like?
Yeah. Okay. So there's good news and bad news. All right. So
Mhm.
this particular client came to me after she had gone to another coach that put her behind a computer, um, offering $8,000 investment packages. And she had about, I don't know, 10 people in there. And she liked it, but she didn't like it. She was extroverted and really, really smart. And so you see, this is where branding comes in. When she
Mhm.
told me that she was past C-level at a Fortune 500 company, and I asked her some questions and got more information, put that together with her personality, because I do what's called personality based marketing. And
Mhm.
when I put it together, I basically said, "You don't want to be behind a computer." And she goes, I don't want to do this. But some coach said I
Yeah.
need to be doing this. And I said, "No, no, no." I said, "You need to be out in corporate America because they want you, but they don't know that yet because yada yada." So I took all of the what I call puzzle pieces, Doug. So when I work with someone,
Mhm.
I ask them lots of questions and I get all these puzzle pieces. And then I help put this beautiful puzzle together, which is their brand print, which they're no two alike. And And so we identified 3 large corporations, and I helped her put together a proposal. And the comptroller had sent the agreement in the email, through email. It was in her inbox. This was March 2020. They reneged. Yep. It was $450,000 for the first 6 months, with the option of another 6 months of $450,000, unless they were going to add on some things. And they had agreed to that, and then the pandemic hit, and it's a very large company, and they didn't, no one knew who was on first, and they retracted that. That's why I said good news and bad news. But the point is, she, a coach saw her at $8,000 investments behind a computer. Those things kill me. They drive me nuts. Because, as you said, you've got to look at that person. It's not, I'm going to put them in a box, and I'm going to tell them to put up a digital program or to sit behind a computer and do. No, you've got to figure out what is best with their personality. You've got to figure out what's best with all the puzzle pieces of their brand. And then you put the marketing pieces, and then and here's the deal. She was used to getting mid 6 figures. So let's keep that up. Why would we not keep that up? So that's what we did.
Well, I think so many coaches try and replicate what's worked for them versus customizing what could work for the client, and you got to have a lot of confidence and experience in doing that, because, if you assess the client and say, hey, this is what should work for them, and you get it wrong, then you're messing with their livelihood, But I love that you had the confidence and the experience, like you were talking about earlier with psychology. You had the confidence and the experience to tell her that, no, let's get you out from behind that computer and let's get you in front of these corporate entities where you belong and can demand higher ticket.
Absolutely.
Fees.
And there's another area for salespeople too, and that is sponsorships. There are companies that are dying to hook up with you, to connect with you. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have these ginormous followings. Yeah, that helps, of course. But you don't have to have them. You can go micro niche and do it that way. Let's say you're having an event, or your company is putting a conference together. Sponsorships. And there's all these different kinds of ways that you can set that up. But there are so many things that sales professionals and entrepreneurs and service industry, as well as product industries, can do that they're not being opened. Their mind is not being open to. And unless someone is there to offer you some of these ways to repurpose your brilliance, you're not going to do it.
I couldn't agree more. And it is, I think this is one of the things you talk about, identifying and working in your zone of genius. That makes a ton of sense, And I was talking about it I was on a panel earlier for a podcast, and they asked, what's the number one mistake you see? Sorry, the number one mistake you see entrepreneurs make when they're building teams, and it's to build teams that you're not identifying their zone of genius and letting them work in that and letting them kind of grow in that, thrive in that. So I think that's a huge piece of what we're talking about here. So what about for you individually? What is next for you, and what are you excited about? Do you have another book coming out?
I do.
Awesome.
I'll tell you, once you write that first book, it's that's it. I didn't even know I was going to write a book.
That.
It's just, you've got to do it. And when you think, I really want to write a book, I really want to write, it will not rest until you write the book. But I'm working
Mhm.
on my 8th book now, and I'm excited about that. But don't forget, I write my books part time because I have a thriving business, and I help my clients write their books. My books are
Mhm.
written in about 4.5 months part time, and I have my clients write their books in 5 months part time because my clients are very busy, as we all are. They're high achievers, and they've got businesses to run. You know,
Mhm.
there's a gal and overseas, and she goes, Ruth, I really want to write a book and I really want to work with you, but I'm trying to get my business to $1 million, and I just can't afford to get away the time. And I said, Laura, I'll tell you what, I have this system down so well. I've done so many books, I've helped so many people. If let's start it, and if you feel that it's taking away time, then I'll give you your money back. So there's no risk. So instead of 5 months, Doug, she finished it in 4 months, and she said it helped her reach her $1 million
Nice.
for her business. So that's what a book can do for you. And it's not like you're a writer and you make your living off writing. You're taking your expertise and you're getting guidance and
Mhm.
accountability to get that book out there to be a bestseller.
Well, and when you look at separation between you and another, let's just say, deal, or you and another consultant or coach, or whatever you're doing, you could be a roofing company, you and another roofing company. Well, if you're looking for separation in terms of being outbid or something like that, I mean, you can not a lot of people are going to spend the time or the mental energy on writing a book. So that could be a huge separator for you. What other roofers have written a book? You know what I'm saying? And so when
Yeah.
your clients are looking at you as a potential, to re-roof their home or whatever the case, you can say, "Hey, I wrote the book on this." That's a big one.
Yeah, well, it
So,
makes a difference. It makes a difference. A book does the heavy lifting for
mhm,
visibility, credibility, marketability, media, TEDx talks, the whole 9 yards. And this year, I'm excited because we just expanded to include ghostwriting services. And so most
oh wow.
ghostwriters are good writers, but they don't have branding. They don't have marketing behind them. They don't have PR behind them. They don't understand this process of sales. And so when someone works with us for ghostwriting, it goes through me, so that by the time that it's ready to put it all together, it's so their book in their voice.
Mhm.
It's yeah, I'm really excited because we're doing it very differently than what's out there right now.
That is exciting. Congrats on that. That's a big deal.
Thanks. Yeah,
So
it is.
the, the last couple questions I have are around legacy. So what does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Okay. So legacy to me means you can be 32, and what is your legacy? And your legacy is basically everything in terms of who you are up until this moment in time. Who Just all your experiences, good, bad, indifferent. And your book, a good book, goes into the Library of Congress. And so it's going to last a lot longer than we are. So that's a big deal. It's a big deal to write a good book. And it's even a better deal to write a bestseller. And so, my legacy, I remember going to Washington, D.C., and I wanted to go to the Library of Congress. And I did. It was so cold out that day. And I had a driver take me to the Library of Congress, and I had him wait for me. And I went up to the receptionist at the library, and God, it's gorgeous. And I said, I'd like to see a book called Where Did the Time Go by Ruth Klein. And he said, I'm sorry, we're too busy. I can't get the book. And I said, well, oh, darn. I said, I'm the author. He goes, you're the author? Just a minute. I'll be right back. And he brought
Hmm.
my first book, and I just had to touch it because, Doug, that book is going to survive me a lot longer than I'm going to be here. And it was just such an experience. And so you can create a legacy at any time in your life. We have this mental block that we think a legacy is towards the end of your life, or when you're 50 or 60 or 70 or 80. No, a legacy is, what are you leaving behind now? What impact are you making right now, no matter what your age?
I love that, and that's a great example of it. Is the book. I'm curious, how did you get it into the Library of Congress, or how does that work?
So the Library of Congress is a huge, gorgeous library. Anyone can walk in, at least at that time. That was over 20 years ago. And I went up to the reception desk and I asked for my book. And it's I could live there, actually. I could live in libraries, I could live in bookstores, and I could definitely live in the Library of Congress. It's exquisite. It's exquisite. And you look up and you see the ceiling, and it's exquisite artwork. And you couldn't find someone to do the art and the architecture of that building today. Nobody even knows how to do it.
I'm gonna have to take my daughter there because she is very much the same way. She every morning she gets to school early. She goes into the library and reads. She
Oh,
loves to read. So I'm gonna have
oh,
to take
I
my daughter over
love
there.
that. I love that. She may end up writing her book before you do.
If I don't get off my butt and do it, absolutely she will. I would love that. I would love to be beat by her. And that's the crazy thing about being a parent is, you
I
know,
know.
we're always we're always wanting our kids to be better than us. Okay, so
Well,
I want to thank you so much for coming on.
I was
Sorry.
just going to
I
say
want to thank you so much for
that's what my book is.
fantastic.
Go ahead.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute honor having you on here, and I love the conversations that we've had. And I hope the listeners can get everything they need from it. But if they can't and they need more, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, they can basically go to my website, ruthklein.com, and Klein is Klein. And I do have a free ebook for them on productivity and time management, which I don't care what field you're in. You've got to be able to have a time management system. And then also they can get me on Instagram, ruth.klein, then get me on TikTok as Momentum Guru. And if someone wants to strategize with me, complimentary for 30 minutes, just go to chatwithruthklein.com. Chatwithruthklein.com.
Fantastic. And all those links will be in the show notes as well.
Great.
Thanks again for coming on the show, Ruth. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Doug.
Let's get building.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. As always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you consume podcasts. Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Building Great Sales Teams, so you can get daily tips on how to get your sales team built brick by brick. We'll see you there.